The Incredible Universe, The Browning Family Murders. The Browning family murders were the quadruple homicide of a family in Maryland in 2008. The victims were a father and mother and their two youngest sons. The perpetrator was the family's eldest son, Nicholas, who is now serving multiple life sentences for the murder of his family. Nicholas Wagner Browning, born February 9, 1992, is an American multiple murderer from the Baltimore suburb of Cockeysville, Maryland. He is currently serving 2 life sentences for murdering his family, his parents, John and Tamara Browning, and his 2 younger brothers, Gregory, 13, and Benjamin, 11, in February 2008, when he was 15 years old. The murders were the subject of a documentary on killer kids titled Spoiled Rotten and Bad Dream. Early life. Browning was born in Maryland on February 9, 1992. His father, John W. Browning, was an attorney, and his mother, Tamara, was a homemaker. He had 2 younger brothers, Benjamin and Gregory, and was an honor student and Boy Scout who attended Delaney High School in nearby Timonium, where he played varsity golf and lacrosse. Murders and confession. On the evening of Friday, February 1, 2008, a week before his 16th birthday, Browning was spending the night at a friend's house and left in the middle of the night to return home. Browning went into his house after other family members were in bed and shot each of them using a gun belonging to his father. He confessed to the killings of his family on the following Sunday and was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. He was denied bail at a hearing later that day. Guilty plea and imprisonment. Although Nicholas alleged he had suffered abuse from his father, prosecutors argued that he murdered his parents because he didn't want anyone telling him what to do and his brother so that he would not be required to share his inheritance. Under a plea agreement reached with prosecutors, Browning pleaded guilty in January 2009 to 4 counts of first-degree murder and was sentenced to 4 life terms in prison with 2 life terms to be served consecutively. Browning may become eligible for parole in 2031 after serving 23 years of his sentence with good behavior. He is currently incarcerated at Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, and was denied a sentence reduction in 2014. The murders shocked the community and made national headlines due to the young age of the perpetrator and the brutal nature of the crimes. During the trial, the prosecution argued that Nicholas Browning had become increasingly troubled and had been acting out in the months leading up to the murders. He was said to have been fascinated with guns and had threatened his parents with violence on several occasions. The defense argued that Nicholas Browning was suffering from mental health issues and had been traumatized by years of abuse from his father. However, the prosecution successfully argued that the teenager was fully aware of his actions and was capable of understanding the consequences of his actions. In 2008, Nicholas Browning was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He remains in prison to this day. The case of Nicholas Browning remains one of the most shocking and disturbing murders in recent memory. It continues to raise important questions about the role of mental health in violent crime, the dangers of easy access to firearms, and the importance of addressing warning signs in troubled young people. The legacy of the Nicholas Browning case will continue to shape the national conversation about youth violence and the importance of addressing this issue in our society. The memory of his father, mother, and younger brothers will live on, and their tragic story will serve as a reminder of the devastating impact that violence can have on families and communities. The following is a blog post by Nicholas from evidenchange.org. Coming to prison as a 15-year-old has obviously shaped me in innumerable ways. I've known nothing but institutions from adolescence on and have now spent 14 years in such places. Next year I will have spent literally half my life in one prison or another. However, given the enormity of my crime, my fate is very much deserved. I took the lives of those closest to me, my own family, and there is nothing I can do to change that horrifying truth. No amount of good works can ever balance out my ledger. Writing Little Gardens was an attempt to articulate all that I've felt and thought over the last decade and a half. As with most things in life, there are no easy answers. Other than, perhaps, the simple fact that I should spend the rest of my life in prison, forgotten and alone. When I contemplate how much pain and loss I've caused, it's hard to argue that any other fate is a just one. Writing and reading have kept me sane over the years. The inanities of prison are certainly enough to overwhelm, and being able to escape into a good book is invaluable. I love nothing more than spending a quiet afternoon in my cell, working my way through a thick novel or a probing nonfiction title. Inasmuch as I have any writing ability, it has been lifted from others. To quote the old literary cliché, good writers borrow, great ones steal. I lack the temerity to class myself in either category, but I think the general sentiment is a valid one. I am grateful to Evidence Change for recognizing my writing. Prison can be a lonely place, and knowing we are not forgotten is liberating. It makes it possible to continue trying to make something meaningful out of the implosion of our old lives. Success is far from certain, but perhaps the attempt is itself valuable. As I said, I have no illusions that I can ever make up for my crime. It will always remain an immutable fact of my life, and that is as it should be. However, I do intend to do what I can to improve the lives of those around me. I am conspicuously talentless with anything other than a pen, and so I play to my strengths. I hope that by writing I can add my small perspective to the broader criminal justice conversation. It should not be a prominent one, but simply another voice in a chorus of inmates describing our daily existence. I know many in here who would make exemplary citizens if they were given that chance. Many of them have faced the consequences of their crimes with true remorse, and they are ready to rejoin society. If my writing helps to humanize my fellow inmates in even the slightest way, I will consider my efforts to have been well worth it. The following is taken from an article by Ann Marble on critteran.medium.com. Unless you live in Maryland, you might not have heard about Nicholas Wagner Browning, a teenaged boy from a respected family who murdered his parents and two younger brothers. While he claimed he did it because of abuse, the murders were cold-hearted. Also, nothing excused murdering his two younger brothers. A privileged life? Try to picture a nice house in the suburbs of Cockeysville, Maryland, in the late winter of 2008. Photographs in the local newspapers show a large home with an enormous lawn. Murders are rare here. The Browning home in Cockeysville, Maryland. Source: The Baltimore Sun, photo by Barbara Haddock Taylor. The father, John, is a local attorney, working at Royston Muller McLean and Reed in nearby Towson, Maryland. The mother, Tamara, is a stay-at-home mom. The oldest child, Nicholas, is approaching his 16th birthday. He has two younger brothers, Greg, 14 years old, and Benjamin, 11 years old. The family often vacations at their vacation home at Deep Creek Lake in western Maryland. The Browning family at their vacation home at Deep Creek Lake. From a photo handed out by the family. Source: Baltimore Sun. Nicholas is an honor student at Delaney High School in Timonium, Maryland, where he is on the varsity lacrosse team. He plays golf, and he also skis, and he's a Boy Scout. His father is involved as a scoutmaster and is also a church leader. A Delaney High School yearbook photo of Nicholas W. Browning from 2007. Source: Baltimore Sun. It sounds like a life of privilege. In many ways, it was, even if it may have had a darker side. We'll never know for sure because the only other witnesses were murdered. The murders. On the evening of Friday, February 1, 2008, Nicholas came home after visiting friends. His actions would shatter not only his family but also his extended family and his community. He shot his father, John, who was sleeping on the sofa on the ground floor, and then, he went upstairs to kill his mother, Tamara, and his younger brothers, Benjamin and Greg. 5 hours later, Nicholas walked back to his friend's house and played video games. He asked his friends to take him home early Saturday afternoon, but not before inviting friends to a party at his house later that evening. After he came back home, Nicholas emerged from the house, announced that he had found his father's body, and called 911. Officers at the crime scene were interrupted several times when Nicholas' friends arrived at the house, expecting to find an ongoing party. By Sunday, Nicholas confessed to police, and he was charged with the murders on that day. He was charged as an adult and denied bail. The next Saturday, he turned 16 years old in the nearby Baltimore County Detention Center, on the day of his family's funeral. What drove him to kill? Was he truly driven by abuse or instead by money? Was he a victim as well as a perpetrator? Even reports from those who knew him vary. His friends viewed him as a class clown. Yet other classmates reported that he was a bully, and they also claimed that he often hit his younger brother, Greg. The adults in his life were also confused. His lacrosse coach, John Kennelly, found the details of the murder hard to believe. At a candlelight vigil, he said, "It's totally out of character. Something snapped. Something went wrong. Nick wouldn't hurt a fly." When we hear about a case like this, it's easy to forget that one coach's beloved student might be a fellow student's bully. He could be the class clown but also the guy everyone knows who mocks minorities and the disabled. Some reports indicate that Nicholas was angry because his parents wanted him to join the family on a trip to Western Maryland, while he wanted to stay in Timonium with his friends. Relatives and friends, including the classmates of his younger brothers, coped the best they could with their grief. They left flowers, balloons, and stuffed animals as tributes on the front steps of the family's home. At one vigil, about 100 people attended. At another memorial, hundreds attended. They mourned, but they also shared happy memories about the family. An impromptu memorial to the murder victims on the front steps of the family home. Source: Baltimore Sun, photo by Jed Kirschbaum. Still, the classmates of Greg and Benjamin struggled with their grief. Garland Williams, the former owner of a local garden center, found a way to help them grieve by setting up a memorial garden at their middle school, Cockeysville Middle School. A life of contradictions. According to a psychiatrist hired by the defense, Nicholas talked about the murders like he was talking about taking out the trash. Before the murders, on the school bus, he talked with friends about killing his family because he wanted his father's money, and they ignored him because they thought he was joking. He also contacted a friend from prison and joked about escaping from prison, saying, "I hate justice." You need to break in here and break me out." Yet Nicholas cried at his sentencing, where he apologized to the relatives who continued to support him. Was that an act? Or is he a Jekyll and Hyde figure? Like Nicholas, the stories he gave also contradict themselves. Nicholas claimed that while walking home from a friend's house, he decided to kill his parents. He said that he wanted to be able to eat dinner alone, without being backhanded or criticized. Once he got home, he used his father's own 9mm pistol to murder his entire family. He claimed he was in a trance-like state when he committed the crimes. Yet authorities believe that he planned the murders ahead of time. Also, Nicholas took the time to make the murders look like a burglary gone bad. Few of the details fit a spur-of-the-moment decision. Nicholas claimed that he committed the murders because his parents were abusive alcoholics. But he was also known to drink too much. Members of his extended family also supported the claims of abuse. However, this did not help him in the courtroom. Also, he did not provide a reason for killing the rest of his family. Surely, even if he was a victim of abuse, his two younger brothers were innocent victims. But not all relatives were so understanding. John Browning's sister, Sally Browning, wrote to the judge, asking, did he actually think he was going to be charged as a juvenile, and would walk away from his crimes? Eventually, he was incarcerated in the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, about 145 miles from his home and in a poorer part of Maryland. So he was finally forced to go to Western Maryland after all. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.